In the same way that Apocalypse Now is the best film adaptation of Heart of Darkness, and more directly, in the same way that Brazil is the best film adaptation of 1984, The Incredibles is the best film adaptation of Watchmen. And y'all think I'm making a funny joke, but this movie is my favorite superhero movie. Every time I watch this movie, I have a little bit of doubt before it starts, thinking, maybe it isn't my favorite superhero movie. I mean, you know, Dark Knight, Dark Man. And then I see it, and I think, nah, Incredibles. And with the second one coming around, this is the best excuse I have to talk about this movie I love, just like everyone else.
I mean, he's a madman. He's great to work for.
Brad Bird is the man who did The Incredibles. He was the writer and director of the first movie, and is the writer and director for the next movie. And all of his movies are good, and I love him, all except for that one movie, but that was only because of this man, who may be the subject of another video I make titled, "Fuck You, Damon Lindelof!" But let's talk about Brad Bird. He went to high school in fucking Corvallis, Oregon? I know that high school. Holy shit, my high school fought them in football. Anyway, after that cool thing I just learned, this man graduated CalArts before the joke was funny and went on to work at Disney. He animated for Fox and the Hound and the Black Cauldron, then left Disney, got his screenplay for Batteries Not Included, picked up by Universal, then went to work for these two unpronounceable words. There he worked on The Simpsons, before it was its own show. When it became its own show, he directed the Sideshow Bob episode. He created a show called Family Dog, did some work on The Critic and King of the Hill for most of the 90s, and then he made his own movie at Fox. And that movie grew up to be The Iron Giants, a great period piece with great characters, great dialogue, great story, and a great big robot. A film beloved by everyone, but not when it came out because it bombed. So Fox didn't want to hire him again, even though he had this cool idea for a superhero family movie. But that's okay because he knew John Lasseter. So he got into Pixar and started working on the movie that we're actually going to talk about. This is a movie I don't really know where to start with, because it's one of those things where you really like it and you tell everyone about it and they say, yeah, no shit, it's The Incredibles. So, animation? Yeah, okay, let's start there.
It's whoever thought about making movies like this was out of their minds.
At the time, Pixar was the top dog when it came to CGI. And they were asking, what can we animate on the computer? More like, what can't we animate on the computer? Humans. We're not super good at humans, honestly. And so, when John Lasseter asked Brad Bird to show up, he busted down the door with a team of people he brought on from The Iron Giant and was like, what if we made a whole movie about humans? And they were like, are you fucking crazy? And he did it anyway, and they look really good. And this wasn't just Pixar's first CGI film with good-looking humans. Humans were a pain in the ass for every studio, and no one had made them look super good. Even if you look at it just this one aspect, this movie was groundbreaking. Entirely new software had to be made to just get the humans to work. Then Bird said, what if this movie was 2 hours long and had a ton of locations? And Pixar was like, are you serious? Do you know how much work you're asking us to put into a train yard that's only going to be in the movie for 5 minutes? There is a location for Frozone's apartment that's going to be in 3 shots of this movie. You want us to make a whole apartment for 3 shots? And he was like, yeah, get to work. Also, hair. We're gonna blow it the fuck out of the water with the hair. We're going to invent new hair technology. Remember Sully from Monsters, Inc? Yeah, we're gonna make that look like garbage. You see Violet? She better look like a CGI L'Oreal commercial, or I swear to God, and it shows. I mean, look at that hair! Look at these clothes! Saying this movie was a pain in the ass to make probably would have been an understatement. But the final product was a massive step forward in CGI animation. From a technical standpoint, it was the thing that everyone said Avatar was. A huge leap forward. But, like Avatar, you can be technically impressive. However, if you don't have the story to make up for it, you damn well might just fall flat. The Incredibles did not fall flat.
And the injury received from Mr. Incredible's actions, so-called, causes him daily pain.
Hey, I saved your life!
You didn't save my life, you ruined my death, that's what the...
If the animation was groundbreaking, Bird probably thought that the story should be too. Okay, he probably thought of the story first, but anyway. Basic plot is that after superheroes were made illegal because of a bunch of lawsuits, previous super strong man Bob Parr tries to live an average life with his super family, but he wishes he could go back to the old days. So he gets fired and signs up to a shady as fuck company that's actually evil, and your ass already knows all this because you've seen it a million times. This movie has really good theming. One of the themes is the importance of family. Now, this isn't a new big theme that no one else has done, but it's one we got here, and its execution really makes it stand out. And the theming of family goes right along with the dichotomy of Dash, who is frustrated he can't use his powers so he acts out, and Violet, who just wants to be normal. That good old theme of what it means to be different, which acts on their character growth. And then, the theming of needing to be different versus trying to fit in shows up in the great fight between Helen and Bob, going over how Bob wants to relive his youth, and all that flows back into the theme of family when his quest to relive the good old days ends in what he thinks gets his family killed, forcing him to reevaluate what's really important in his life. And I'm not done yet! This scene is a great example of another theme, what makes you a superhero versus what makes you a villain. A theme with direct ties to Syndrome's backstory and motivation, flowing right back into being special versus being normal. So, in conclusion, this movie has really good theming. And it juggles all of its themes really impressively when you have some movies who can't even handle one theme without tripping and falling. But of course, none of this would be as impactful if the characters were written badly. Yeah, they're good. What do you think? I'm just gonna turn this around? Like,
You left Jack alone?
Yes, Mom, I'm completely
No, we
stupid.
got
Of course we
Mom,
got a sitter. Do you think I'm
great. We
totally
wouldn't do
irresponsible?
that.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
this is where we get into the nitty-gritty of what Brad Bird is really good at. This shined in The Iron Giant and was kicked up even harder in The Incredibles. And this is also what everyone really remembers from the movie. I don't think there's a single line from this movie that's even boring. And every joke is great. It isn't quippy like a lot of people don't like about the Marvel movies. Most of the jokes come from the family dynamics, like a really punchy, clever sitcom. And speaking of family dynamics, all the characters are just the best. You have a nuclear family complete with Dash, the overactive 10-year-old boy whose power is run fast, Violet, the moody teenage girl whose powers are to make herself invisible to her friends and push people away. These two constantly fight, forcing Helen, who once utilized her stretching powers for heroism, to utilize them by keeping the household steady, dealing with a million things at once, including her husband, Bob, who was once the strong man and is now the salary man. And there's Jack, the baby whose superpower is just to be the most destructive thing in the universe. You also have the villains, Mirage and Syndrome. One, a working woman who becomes more and more disillusioned by her boss, Syndrome, the previous #1 fan of Mr. Incredible. He's a super genius turned villain after becoming similarly disillusioned by the idea of superheroes when his hero told him to fuck off and then saved his life because he was being a dumbass. He and Mr. Incredible have a history, to the point where Mr. Incredible is responsible for the man he is today, making him a wonderful villain. And I feel the most telling thing about the character writing is that the comic relief character in this kid's cartoon movie is not only not the worst character, but very well maybe the best. If you wanted to throw an Edna Mode 20-minute adventure at my face, I tell you I would have no problem with that. Also, this woman is voiced by Brad Bird himself. Fun thing to note. Now, the dialogue itself is wonderful. It has incredibly memorable lines.
Nuggets! Where is my super suit? Coincidence? I think not!
Hilarious exchanges.
Mom and Dad's lives could be in jeopardy, or worse, their marriage.
You're making weird faces again.
You make weird faces, honey.
Don't just stand there. I need you to intervene.
You want me to intervene? Okay, I'm intervening.
All the way over to fantastic arguments.
What are we doing here, Bob?
We're protecting people.
Nobody asked.
You need an invitation?
I'd like one, yes.
What will you do? Is this a question? You will show him you remember that he is Mr. Incredible, and you will remind him who you are.
You know why we can't do that.
Because it'd be great!
This is not about you.
And some huge low points that are really propped up by the dialogue.
I'll crush her.
Oh, that sounds a little dark for you. Now, go ahead.
It'll be easy, like breaking a toothpick.
Well, these guys are not like those guys. They won't exercise restraint because you're children. They will kill you if they get the chance. Do not give them that chance.
And of course, this dialogue wouldn't land without some damn fine voice talent. Craig T. Nelson and Holly Hunter blow it out of the park as Helen and Bob. Spencer Fox and Sarah Vowell as Dash and Violet respectively are just the best. You throw all these pieces into a pot and you got a good movie. And that's what this movie is. It's a good movie. It's a very good movie. And it's probably my favorite Pixar movie too. Plus, when the movie came out, the climate was perfect for this kind of superhero movie. You had X-Men and Spider-Man making huge waves, and then the year after this, you'd see the first Nolan Batman film. Superhero movies were becoming cool, and the second one has a lot to live up to, but again, the climate is perfect for a superhero film like this. Plus, Brad Bird is writing, directing, and reprising his previous role. Usually when a movie like this goes around and everyone gets really hype or at least cautiously optimistic, I can't be there with them, because either it's a returning director who hasn't done anything good in ages, it's being written and directed by someone who is bad and or had little to do with the first one, or it's a shamelessly obvious studio cash grab. This movie doesn't have any of those signs. It's got a lot to live up to. But I believe in you, Brad Bird. You never let us down except for that one time, and that wasn't your fault. This man, on the other hand...